welcome back to Motivation Monday. We got Justin, Jason, and Hope here, and we're so excited to join you guys again. We are in week 3 of our series Uprooted, and this is actually the final week of our series Uprooted. So if you want to catch up on those other videos, they're all on YouTube, and I'd also encourage you to watch last week's video as well, where we had some guests with us, Anissa and Joe Brown, and they're able to share some really cool stuff with us. We talked about what it means to be salt and light during this season, and we talked about racial reconciliation. It was an amazing conversation. Go check it out. That was last week. But this week, we have a really exciting topic as well, and I'll let Jason get into that a little bit.
That's right. So this week, we are, like he said, finishing up our Uprooted series, where we've been talking about just the idea of, in this difficult season, being uprooted from a lot of the things we used to find our identity in. And then also talking about how we can be rooted in what God says, who he created us to be. So for this week, we're really focusing on one thing I feel like many of us really struggle with, and we all struggle with at times, is social media. And so now when I talk about social media here, I will put a little, probably define it a little bit. Social media, obviously, you got your Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, those things. But think about this too, just really with any technology. So any other things like YouTube, TikTok, pretty much there's millions of them out there. Seems like there's a new one all the time. But like kind of what we're talking about, this idea of social media technology and the influence that it has on us and how much we are rooted in those things. And so, but before we get into kind of the meat of it, I wanted to kind of just have a little bit of a conversation about some of the things when it comes to social media. Like, a lot of times we can focus on some of the negatives, but let's start with some of the positives. So for you guys, what are some of the positives of social media?
Honestly, recently with like even COVID-19, like connecting with other people, seeing other people has been awesome. Like I've heard that.
Yeah, I think another positive aspect of it is that it's a great way to get information out there about maybe an event or something. This is a shameless plug to follow cbcva.students on Facebook and Instagram. We have some exciting announcements we're going to make later this week and next week about some summer stuff that we're planning. So go give us a follow, but I'd say that's a positive. I don't know.
That's right. So each day this summer, we're actually going to Justin's house to have a party, right? Is that
Rangers?
Sounds like a little much on my end. I don't know.
We still got to talk some things out, I guess, but I thought that was the plan. But that's definitely a good one.
Oh man, and just like celebrating other people's accomplishments and adventures and being excited about them and encouraging them and like what they're doing.
Yeah,
it's really fun.
Definitely, yeah. So there's a lot of good things about social media, and there's more. I'm sure you guys can think of some too. But with some positives, there also comes some negatives with social media. So what are some negatives that you've kind of seen with social media?
I think one thing that I've noticed is just like looking at other people's stuff and seeing them at the beach or like seeing friendships. I think I have a lot of sometimes envy or jealousy. It's like, wow, they look like they have such good, strong friendships that like it's consistent. It's like, oh, maybe I want that. Like maybe are my friends that close? Like, do I have that support? And just kind of that envy and it comes up for me.
That's a big one. I experienced that one as well too. And another one that came to my mind is FOMO. You've probably heard that phrase before, the fear of missing out. I feel like nowadays when I'm scrolling through social media, it seems like everyone's at the beach or something, and I just feel like I'm missing out because I'm stuck in my house all the time during this season. But so FOMO is a big negative effect that I feel like it has on me.
And that's probably the reason why you went home for a little while, but then you were missing out on all the fun that I was having. So you wanted to come back down?
I had to come back to Virginia. That's right.
Yes. You just want to hang out with Eli. Don't be lying. You want to hang out with my son. That's what it is. I think kind of that envy, I think sometimes, it's like you look at the 10 Commandments, you always think about like murder, like don't commit adultery. But like for some reason, envy is just kind of like this little thing we don't talk about as much. But envy is something that really can hinder us, and hinder other people in our lives. And so with social media, that's where it really shows up big time in today's culture. And so we want to talk about that. And through that, sometimes when we like you say, we envy and we kind of get caught up in the comparison trap, or we feel the FOMO, a lot of negative emotions can come from that, kind of the byproduct of those things, like loneliness, anxiety, sadness, even depression. Some of those things can come up when we get so fixated and we allow social media to be the master of us. And so for me, I was kind of thinking about that, and we all we have to be mindful of those things and watch those things. And so one passage that really came to mind for me is Proverbs 14:30. So I'm going to open that up and we're going to go over that real quick. But Proverbs 14:30 says this: "A heart at peace gives life to the body, but envy rots the bones." Now, I love this proverb because it's kind of given this description of, the heart. It's kind of our emotion, our thoughts, things like that, kind of the inner part of us, right? And then that's obviously with envy, that's an inner thing. But those inward emotional things, our mental health, affects our physical bodies, right? It affects not just our emotions or our thoughts, but it can affect us physically. And so it says, "A heart at peace gives life to the body." So when we're at peace in our heart and our mind, it gives life to everything that we are, our whole body, our whole selves. But on the flip side, when we allow envy to kind of just have full reign and do what it wants, it can really rot the bones and deteriorate who we are, our whole bodies as well. And so for me, as I was thinking about it, obviously then I don't want to let envy rot my bones away. That doesn't sound very fun. Not going to lie, I don't want that. So then how do we have a heart at peace, right? That's a really interesting phrase, but what does that look like? How do we do that? How do we have a heart at peace so we can give life to our bodies instead of letting envy rot our bones, especially when we talk about social media? So for me, what we want to do today is kind of just share a couple things, and these are not by no means all the things, but a couple things that really came to mind for us. We have 3 ways that instead of allowing social media to be the master of you, you can be the master of social media. So let's go over 3 ways you can be the master of social media so it's not the master of you. So we got 3 things. The first one for me that really stood out to me, and I think it's so important, especially when we talk about this comparison trap, envy, letting those things. The first thing for me that I think we always got to make sure that we do is we celebrate others.
Yeah.
We celebrate others. Now, that sounds really simple, really not a big deal, but it is. A lot of the times, right, you're scrolling through your feed, you're seeing a lot of people doing things. Maybe they're getting a lot of likes and comments on their posts, or maybe they're at the beach or something right now and you're still at home and social distancing. And it can be very easy to just get jealous, to have this negative view of that person because they're doing something great, right? And we compare their highlight reel to all of our everyday life. And that's not a fair comparison. But a lot of times when we allow our thought life to go that direction, it can really, like Proverbs says, rot our bones. But instead, what I would encourage us to do, and encourage, and something I try and do is instead of just being all negative about what they're doing, celebrate what they're doing. Instead of saying, "Oh man, I wish I could do that," say, "You know what, good for them. That's awesome they got to go to the beach. That's awesome they got to spend some time with their friends or their family, going out and having some much needed time off. That's great that they got to achieve that, and they had a lot of people liking and commenting on their posts. Good for them." And so for me, it's a conscious choice to be positive, to affirm others rather than be negative. And that's something that sometimes is very easy to forget to do, to allow the negatives to overwhelm the positives. But I think it's important for us, especially as followers of Jesus, to encourage one another, right? So I don't know. For me, it's celebrating others is a good one. And for me, there's a great quote by Craig Rochelle. He wrote this great book called #Struggles. And he said this when he was talking about celebrating others. He said this: "Celebration sends a kill shot right to the heart of envy." And so if you're struggling with envy, if you feel those negative thoughts going through your mind, a great way to overcome those things, to get rid of those things, is to celebrate others, because it can send a kill shot right to the heart of envy.
I like what you said about conscious decision. Yeah. Even if the first thought is you can be wait a second, I'm going to choose to celebrate them. It doesn't have to be an emotion, it can be a choice. But another thing that, this is going to sound a little cliche, but just unplugging from social media and plugging into community. Mm-hmm. I find often if I'm spending a ton of time in social media, it's because it's an easy way to get entertainment and spend my time. And I'm kind of letting fear hold me back instead of having the courage to reach out. Because if I reach out, people can turn me down, and people do. And having that courage to keep reaching out, to keep loving others, and recognizing that those relationships that I have with people are the ones that are the most life-giving to me. But it takes courage to do it. And sometimes I'm letting fear keep me trapped in social media. So I really do want to encourage you guys, don't let fear hold you captive on YouTube, especially in this time when you have a lot more time. Is like sometimes, oh, I'm afraid that I won't have as much fun at that. Have the courage to try. Take the courage, take the step, reach out to your friends, reach out to your family, and have the courage to build those relationships. So that's a big thing for me.
Yeah, that's great. Social media sometimes prevents us doing the very thing that we need to do, which is be connected in community. So it's easy to hide behind your phone, but real community takes effort and time, but it's so rewarding and healthy for you.
That's right. And finally, the third thing we just wanted to share with you guys is take time each day to thank God for all that he's blessed you with. Like Jason was saying, it's so easy to focus on negative emotions, but in reality, we all have so much that we can thank God for. And even when it seems like everything's going wrong and it seems like we've had a horrible day, like we can just take a step back and focus on what God has blessed us with and what we can be thankful for. And so that'd be my third and final encouragement for you guys tonight. And finally, we just wanted to close out with a passage, Philippians chapter 4, verses 4 through 9. And it really just encompasses all that we've been talking about right here. So I would like to share it with you guys right now. And so it's Philippians 4, verses 4 through 9. It says this: "Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice, and the God of peace will be with you."
I love that passage. Paul really just talks about the importance of rejoicing and when you're anxious, when you're feeling some of these negative emotions, to spend time reaching out to God in prayer. And when you're praying, take time to be thankful. Thank him for those things and focus on whatever is right, whatever is good, whatever, all those things. It's so important. I think it's so great for us to actually live out this passage, because it's very easy for us not to and get caught up in the negative. So I guess for us, kind of wrapping up, and the bottom line for tonight is this: when you are rooted in the peace that comes from God, you can master social media instead of allowing it to master you. And I think that's important. And for us to ask ourselves, are we allowing social media to be the master of us? And when it's the master of us, right, with all these negative thoughts and emotions, the FOMO, the envy, the loneliness, anxiety, those things can then have free reign on our thought life and kind of really rot our bones. But on the flip side of it, if we want to be the masters of social media and use it for positive things but not allow it control us, we can do some pretty extraordinary things. But if we want to do that, we have to be rooted in what God says and what God says about us and how he cares for us. And that's kind of really just kind of wrapping up this series, what this all has been about. There are so many things pushing for our attention, our focus, that are trying to label us and define who we are. And a lot of those things, while maybe subtly they may seem good, there's a lot of negatives to them. Whether it's, we've talked about just what other people say about us, whether it's our success, our accomplishments, what we do. But in this series, we've really been talking about just the idea that what would it look like to be rooted in an identity in Christ, rooted and built up, as Colossians says, to find our identity and our worth and significance and value in the one who created us and has saved us and has called us to live a life and to do some extraordinary things. And so I encourage you to be rooted in an identity in Christ.
That's right. And before we go, I just want to let you know about some exciting things we have going on. Next week, like we did mention, this was the last week of the Uprooted series. But next week, we're starting a new series on Motivation Monday called What's the Point? And it's talking about the parables of Jesus. So we're going to be going through some parables throughout the summer, and we got some fun stuff planned for that. And finally, one other thing, we do have online student groups this week. Tuesday for middle school, Thursday for high school, and that's at 7 o'clock. So we got some fun games planned and some good discussions. So we hope to see you guys there. But other than that, we're signing off for tonight, and we look forward to seeing you all this week.
Awesome. Hey, you guys, take care.
See you guys.